My name's Renya, and you're listening to WC Wellness. One topic I briefly mentioned but didn't really go in depth about is like relationships and dating. And I kind of mentioned this before in a previous episode, but like I've had a couple casual high school boyfriends when I'm like, 15, 16, 17, and then I got into my first like real serious relationship my freshman year of university. Looking back, it's kind of funny thinking how much I thought I knew then versus like now and how much I actually know now. And it's like there's still so much to learn and so much to balance and manage. Love is so amorphous and people are so unpredictable, and it's like the biggest thing that I had to remind myself was that I am not a mind reader. Everything is so amorphous when it comes to love and human emotions and human connections. The biggest thing that I've learned and I've realized over the years of dating is that your influences when you're younger are going to be like who you are now, if that makes sense. And like obviously that's known, but it's like we never really pinpoint it and we never really like think about how what we've experienced in our childhood when it pertains to relationships affects our relationships today. Like, for example, I'm very, very lucky, and my parents have been together since they were 17. They have been married for over like 25 years, and I'm pretty sure they've been together for like over 35 years. And it's like they have the perfect high school sweetheart story, and they have always treated each other with respect. They've always done things for each other, and obviously, I'm not going to say their relationship is perfect. No relationship is perfect, but they were able to set a pretty good example for me. And I've kind of realized that I took a lot of their dynamic into my current relationships. Like my mom was a stay-at-home mom. My dad was the typical like breadwinner. He went to work. My mom took care of the kids. She took care of the house. She cooked. She cleaned. When he came home, like dinner was on the table. But then it's not like my dad was also kind of like useless. Like after dinner, he would then do the dishes, and then all the kids would pitch in too to help. My mom had always said that like relationships are a two-way street, and that has always stuck with me, and I think I've actually mentioned that in a previous episode as well. I never realized how much that impacted me and how much that affected my relationships today because I didn't realize, like, I consider myself a pretty independent person. A lot of times, like, I like doing my own thing, I like having my own space, but I also like having someone with me that adds on to it and kind of enhances, if that makes sense. But it's like I also realized that I took a lot from my mom and dad's dynamic, which was you clean the house for them, you make dinner. When they get home, dinner is on the table kind of thing. And I didn't even realize I was doing it until one of my ex-boyfriends, I think my freshman year of university, kind of made a derogatory joke to his friend about how I'd be like this perfect wife. I mean, obviously there's a lot more derogatory terms that I will not say on here. But basically the gist of that was I'd be a perfect wife or like stay-at-home mom. And I never really imagined myself being a mom. And it's like I didn't really make that connection until a couple months ago. I mean, inherently, human beings are social creatures, and at the heart of it, we all just want to be loved. And the trauma, or not trauma, the whatever you experience as a baby in your childhood becomes you, and it just takes over your love life. At the heart of it, everyone wants to be loved, everyone wants affection, everyone wants to be wanted, but the way it comes out and the way it's internalized can affect people's, methodology for getting there. One of my coworkers quoted something to me about honestly a year ago, and I will never forget it. And he said that there are no bad people, there are only hurt people, and I will die by that statement, I think. I kind of mentioned this before, but I had been in a toxic relationship my freshman year of university, and I will never hate that person because I have the understanding that they wanted to be loved, they wanted to love, but they didn't know how because the things that they experienced did not allow them to be able to properly love someone in a way someone deserves. Another one of my favorite quotes that kind of helped me get through the mental processes of going through that relationship was that the abused become an abuser. And I'm not trying to defend abusers. Domestic violence and abuse in general in any form is not okay, and those people should be properly punished for it. However, I do empathize and resonate with their pain to an extent. I mean, it's never okay to take it out on other people because you were hurt, but I, to an extent, understand where they're coming from, but I still think that they do deserve punishment, you know? I just think it's so important that when you go into a relationship, you do not lose sight of what matters. Because in the past, with different people, I have often lost sight of what matters. What matters in the moment maybe might be winning an argument, proving that I'm right, maybe taking a trip, trying to fix their behavior, getting my behavior changed and fixed, whatever the problem is. Sometimes I lose track of like what I really want, and what I really want is to be happy, to be a good partner, and to make my partner happy, and to have a long relationship. Obviously, everyone has different goals in mind, and those are mine, but to be able to achieve them, I kind of have to really go into my relationships with an open mind. I just really have to remind myself what the end goal is and what the work I have to do is to get there. A lot of that is understanding the other person, because a lot of times you might think you know someone, but you still don't know them. It's like, and this is going back to what I was saying, just everything you experience and witness when you were young is going to affect you. And a lot of times when you're very close to someone, you can accidentally trigger those trauma responses and they will act out against you. That is something I didn't really realize when I was going into my first serious relationship. And a lot of things that happened in there, I thought because I was a bad person, because I deserved it, all of the typical like victim mindset. It's like, I deserve this because I don't know why I deserve this, but I deserve this because they make me believe I deserve this. Instead of really thinking of it as they are acting this way because they are traumatized, and while that doesn't make it okay for them to act that way, I understand why they're acting that way. I think being vulnerable and open in a relationship is one of the most important aspects. If you don't really know yourself, and if you don't really know what makes you tick, what triggers you, why you act a certain way when blank happens, your partner isn't going to know either, and they aren't going to be able to change and to grow with you. This is a quote I have hanging on my wall, and it's by C.S. Lewis, and I think it's from the 4 Seasons of Love, and it goes, "Love anything and your heart will be wrung and possibly broken. If you want to make sure of keeping it intact, you must give it to no one, not even an animal. Wrap it carefully round with hobbies and little luxuries. Avoid all entanglements. Lock it up safe in the casket or coffin of your selfishness. But, in that casket, safe, dark, motionless, airless, it will change. It will not be broken. It will become unbreakable, impenetrable, irredeemable. To love is to be vulnerable." That quote gives me tingled, and I think it sums up humans in the best and worst way possible. When we are young and we experience trauma and we don't internalize it properly or in the way that makes, a neurotypical person, we become traumatized and we shut down and we close everything off. That is something I did for the longest time due to my backstory and adoption and everything that happened in the orphanage. And that quote, I've been reading that, and I've memorized that quote actually, and it just sits in the back of my mind rent-free. Because of my deep, intense fear of being abandoned, because of my fear of someone knowing me, someone loving me, someone taking care of me, and then leaving, my fear definitely got in the way of a lot of relationships, and I was very closed off. A lot of people, they had been with me for a while, but they still felt like they didn't know me, and that was my own fault because I wouldn't let myself be open, I wouldn't let myself become vulnerable because of fear. At the end of the day, you are going to get hurt, you're going to get your heart broken, and you're going to learn from it. That is the biggest thing I've learned so far. You will get heartbroken. You will be crying over a stupid girl, a stupid guy that did something stupid, and you're going to be upset by it. But then you're going to move on, you're going to grow, and you're going to learn from that experience. You're supposed to be open. You're supposed to be vulnerable. You are supposed to let yourself be in a position that you could potentially get hurt because the outcome is going to be so much greater than the loss, I think. It's like, yeah, you could let fear rule your life and you can never open your heart up, and that's fine because you're playing it safe. You're not going to get hurt, but you are going to feel like you're in a glass box watching from the distance. Why doesn't anybody love me? Why doesn't this happen? Why doesn't that happen? But it's because you don't let it happen. Now, this one's more popular and more well-known. It's from Perks of Being a Wallflower. You probably know where I'm going with this. We accept the love we think we deserve. That goes back to everything I've been talking about. If your parents were if your parents were abusive, if your parents sucked, if your first boyfriend sucked, it's like they treat you in a certain way and then you think that you deserve it because no one's ever really shown you different, and it destroys you from the inside out and it destroys your confidence. One thing I've noticed with myself and other people is if you were in a toxic relationship or if you've experienced a lot of toxic friendships when you're younger, if you've had bad parents, bad friends, whatever, you will continue to chase after those relationships because that's what you know, that's what you're comfortable with, and that's what you think you deserve. Now, I'm mainly speaking from my own personal experience. Maybe other people are probably better at learning. I have the problem of trusting people too much, and I have a lot of it. I don't think it's a bad thing that I have a lot of hope for people, but it's like if someone does me wrong, I'm not going to give up on them until it's like I've been done wrong 5 million times. Other people are better at that. It's like some people know exactly the treatment that they deserve, and if someone like crosses that boundary, they're over. And it's like, props to those people. I wish I had that much confidence and self-respect. But I also know that some people, they just never learned how to stand up for themselves, how to set boundaries, how to kind of say what they want and be able to leave if they don't get what they want. I am that type of person. A lot of my friends are those types of people. We're all in the same boat. I don't really blame us because for me personally, I'm 20. A lot of my friends are like 19 or like between like 20 and like 25. And it's like no one knows what they're doing, and we all just want to be loved. So we all just do what we think is right. And sometimes we're so afraid that no one else is going to love us that we stay with someone that doesn't treat us right because we don't know any better. I just really like looking at love as almost a tangible thing. You need steady foundations of yourself, and your partner needs steady foundations of themselves too. And then you kind of have to combine those steady foundations together to make something even stronger. And it's like building those foundations are going to take a lot of time. It's going to take a lot of self-reflection. It's going to take a lot of honesty, being open, vulnerability, and a lot of communication. One thing I really like to remind myself is that no one is made for each other. And I'm sure you've been told that. It's like, oh, I think we're made for each other. Oh, you're perfect for me. I'm perfect for you. That's all like nonsense. It's just straight up nonsense. No one is made for each other. A lot of people have a lot of complementary behaviors and attributes, but no one's made for each other. You have to work on that. But it's like, it's so hard to work on being made for each other when you don't even have yourself. That was another one of the issues in my first relationship. We were both really young. We didn't know who we were. We didn't know what we wanted, what we would like to do. We just knew that we wanted to be with each other. And we were also traumatized kids. So it's like, no wonder the relationship went the way it did. And I don't really blame either of us. But going forward, I now know that like I kind of have to be a person by myself in order to be a good person to be with. A relationship is basically just never-ending work. You have to work on yourself, and you have to work on just being a good partner. People are always growing and people are always changing, and it's just never-ending work. It's not one person against the other proving who's right, who's better at this, who does this more. It's you two against a problem, and that problem could be miscommunication. The problem could be some trauma internalized poorly that people have to get over. You should always be working with your partner, not against your partner. And like I said, like sometimes you're gonna lose track of that and you want to work against them because you want that ego boost, you want to be able to be right, or you just want to prove a point, or sometimes you don't even know why you're doing something. You're just reacting. I just think that having an open mind is super important in a relationship because you don't know the other person's story entirely, and even if you think you do, you still don't know. Because it's like, you don't even know your own story entirely. How could someone else know their own story entirely? Love is just so difficult, and it's such a broad concept, and there's just so many intertwining parts that go along to loving someone, being loved, and being in a relationship. I think the best advice I can give that I already haven't spoken about is just being able to go into a relationship without expectations, because when you have expectations, people fall off, you feel disappointed, you put people on a pedestal, and then for some reason that maybe you're not even aware of, you feel disappointed and hurt, but it's mainly because you put those expectations on. Loving and being loved is so difficult, and it's always going to be a learning experience, but never let that learning experience stop, because I think everyone deserves to be loved. There's this Tumblr post with a bunch of really good quotes from The Good Place, and I'm going to read off my favorite one. People improve when they get external love and support. How can we hold it against them when they don't? That's kind of goes back to what I was saying. It's like, sometimes people just weren't loved enough as a child, and they don't know what it is, so they don't know how to give that real type of love to people, so they give the type of love they receive. It just says so much about people, human behavior, and love in general. When people are loved, they become loving people. If people aren't loved, they are a lot less loving, and this can pertain to your partner's behavior or even your own behavior. Everyone wants to be loved, but not everyone knows how to get that love and how to be a person that is deserving of that love. Just remember to always be kind, to always have an open mind, and to be ready to give love even if you don't receive it back at that moment, because somewhere there's going to be someone that's really, really grateful and thankful that you loved them and you were patient with them and you gave them time to improve because no one else did. I'm your host, Renya, and you're listening to WC Wellness.